Next month, South Africa is hosting the African Growth and Opportunity Act Forum. Delegates will be expected to discuss renewals, exports, new memberships and exits with input from governance and the private sector. Weber Wenzel, which advises on continental matters, is of the view that while it's, and I quote, nice to have access to the US market, it may be time for Africa to look to other markets as well. Weber Wenzel's partner there, Chetni Gopal, joins me now. She has co-authored an article with Meluleki Nzimande about this matter of AGOA. Good afternoon, Chetni. Welcome to eNCA here on today, this afternoon. When you suggest, just an overriding question first, because before we delve into some of the issues you raise, when you say, yeah, it's a nice to have to be part of AGOA, but there are other markets as well that we need to look at. You are not by any stretch of imagination suggesting AGOA, we don't need AGOA.
No, of course not. Definitely not the case. We are on a very vibrant continent at the moment, right? You've got the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. And so the world is opening up to intra-African trade, of course, but there are other markets in which we trade. So Europe and then, of course, China as well. That said, we have a huge export pool that is going straight to the United States. So we're looking in the region of around 300 billion. And AGOA is about 20 billion, well, 60 billion of that. But why AGOA still is important is that AGOA allows kind of preferential access to the US market. It means that certain African goods, South African goods are exempt from import duties, which of course makes our goods a lot more competitive in the US market. So it is, of course, very, very important to try and look after AGOA, really, going into the forum and look after our interests and, of course, those of the region as well. But we do think it's probably time to start diversifying our export pool.
Yeah, which is always prudent. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, and there are other opportunities and other markets. But you don't think that South Africa's position in AGOA is threatened in any way in terms of what you've expressed in opinion, despite the noise we've had recently, particularly around the docking of Lady R in Simonstown, which allegedly took weapons to Russia from here?
Yes. Look, I think the government as well as political parties have been fantastic, and business as well, really, in allaying US concerns. I don't think that we're in any danger, I suppose, just from a geopolitical kind of tension perspective. But that said, you know, there are other considerations to keep in mind. South Africa is probably one of the most developed economies on the continent, and every year there is a review looking at South Africa's and other beneficiaries' memberships, and there is a time where a country is able to kind of graduate from AGOA, and that means that our market is so far progressed and has benefited enough from AGOA that it's kind of time for us to make our swift exit.
Yeah. While you argue that South Africa remains very much eligible to retain its AGOA status, you point out, and if you can tell us why, that quality, not just quantity of trade, is important.
Yes. So really, why we're saying quality and over quantity is that we've got a huge export pool. In terms of scale, the US is only our third biggest exporter, right? And actually, the vast majority of our goods going into the US market are not under AGOA at all. But why quality is important is really it is very much proudly South African goods that are going into the US under AGOA. They need to be almost wholly produced in South Africa or substantially transformed. And that latter part is quite important because it means that we get to work with our partner countries across the continent. We could get, say, for example, metals from Zambia and turn that into jewelry, and that jewelry gets into the US market. So that is why quality is important. So proudly South African and African.
Thank you very much for your time and insights this afternoon, Chedni Gopal. She's, of course, a partner at Weber Wenzel, just unpacking their views about why they believe South Africa is not at risk of losing the benefits and the status in AGOA, which is that American law for preferential tariffs for the African continent. At the top of